Alright, guys, what's up? Angry Jackalope Rob Ricks. I am back with another reading of Convergence 2012. We left off on chapter 19. So we got 18 chapters in the bag. We'll try to get, let's see here. So 19, let's see here. There's 20. We might get to, yeah, we should be able to get to 22. We're gonna try to get to 22. All right. So here we go. Chapter 19. The stage is set. December 19, 2011, Las Vegas, 2:10 p.m. The flight back to Vegas had been delayed twice. Once because of mechanical issues, and a second time due to bad weather. On the flight back, Tim was silent, and ᶠᶸᵜᵏ knew the encounter with the Drake, as well as his own methodologies, had left a bad taste in Tim's mouth. He also knew Tim was concerned about the martyr's barb, and unfortunately, there was nothing ᶠᶸᵜᵏ to do to alleviate his anxiety. The barb would have to stay, as it was vital to the mission. When they got back to the Bellagio, Joy jumped Tim and hugged him. She had been sitting in the suite with the couch rearranged so she could see the front door when it opened. Tim was happy to see her, and all the stress almost seemed to melt away. ᶠᶸᵜᵏ was glad that Tim had Joy, as he knew the human would have to lean hard on her in the upcoming months. "Wow, you weren't gone that long. I thought you guys were going to be, away for a month or something." Tim shook his head. "Nope, in and out quick style. What you been up to while we were gone?" She shrugged. "Just watching a lot of TV and ordering some room service mostly. I didn't want to be out and you guys show up, or need me, you know?" Tim nodded and walked over to the couch. A blanket and leftovers were on the tables. She grinned. "Like I said, I didn't know when you guys would be back, so I seriously just vegged. I was watching the news, but things are getting way out of hand, and it was starting to depress me. Did you hear about Washington?" Tim had heard other passengers talking about some protesters who were gunned down, but not the specifics. "Just bits and pieces. What's up?" "Where there were protesters who were really just peacefully sitting there and not moving. The army came in to move them along, and one guy lost it, was kicking the shit out of two soldiers like he was Jet Li or something. And the next thing you know, they opened fire. They killed over 30 people, and the worst part was there was kids there." Tim might have been shocked at some point if he wasn't still reeling from the fact that an actual alien tried and nearly succeeded in killing him. "Damn, that's messed up. So what's happening now?" "A lot of riots in all kinds of places. There were 10 cops who died and lots of fires. Some was in New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, pretty much where protests were already going full swing. Now there's fires and looting and lots of gunfights. President's declared martial law, and now there's strict curfew in a lot of cities." ᶠᶸᵜᵏ was listening, and then he sat on a couch in the corner of the suite, which faced out over the strip, and he closed his eyes and began to meditate. Tim leaned back in the couch and watched the television. Joy continued. "So at the curfew, a lot of people have been arrested for being out after it. In Oakland, a group of teenagers was being rounded up, and one shot a cop. The cops fired back and killed 6 of them. So you know what happened there? Giant fucking riot broke out. Still going on, last I heard." Tim nodded. "Sounds way fucked up." Joy glanced at ᶠᶸᵜᵏ and then looked at Tim long and hard. "You okay?" Tim shook his head. "Nope. But you know what? Doesn't matter. You want to go downstairs and grab something to eat and chill?" Joy nodded. "What about ᶠᶸᵜᵏ?" "He can grab his own food when he's done, or he'll drink more of the milk." Joy glanced at ᶠᶸᵜᵏ, who hadn't moved at all, and his face showed no emotions. He was obviously in his own world, and once he was in it, there was nothing that could be done to break him out of it. She had tried before. "Cool. Let me put some makeup on and we can go. Baby, you're already the most beautiful thing in Vegas. Why are you gonna fuck with perfection?" She shrugged. "Fine, sweet talker, let's go." Tim glanced once at ᶠᶸᵜᵏ and then opened a door. Joy went first and he followed. ᶠᶸᵜᵏ waited for the couple to be on the elevator. He could hear their footsteps and the motor of the elevator. Its doors opened and they got in. When it began its descent, ᶠᶸᵜᵏ opened his eyes. He stood up and motioned, and the furniture moved across the room out of his way. The floor was empty, and he motioned again. A ghostly bluish flame danced its way around a circle on the floor, burning a pattern into it. He focused, and more little flames danced until the center of the circle was filled with numerous sigils. He took a deep breath, and all the windows blackened. The room was dark, except for a dull blue glow that filled it. The center of the room shimmered softly, and Kuthanaga nodded to himself. Reshnaga. Okay, so here's that mental part again. Asterisk. Reshnaga. Reshnaga, are you there? Kuthanaga could feel the contact at first. It resisted, and then relaxed. Kuthanaga, how goes it? The stage is set. Where are you at this point? I'm in Mexico City, with the mirrors spreading fast. I have mirrors as far north as Juarez and as far south as Guadalajara. Why? Kuthanaga motioned, and the circle in front of him took on the shape of the earth. Veins stretched all along its surface. He focused on veins around New York, and one vein lit up and glowed brightly. He followed 3 small veins. One went down to an island, small island near Florida called Bimini, and one to a small town in Canada called Maniwaki. And the final branch worked its way to Mexico to a small town called Don Martin. I want you to take up residence in a town called Don Martin. That is going to be an important area within the next 6 days. Okay, I will take up haven there. How goes it with the others? It's going well. Everyone has mirrors working rapidly. In fact, we are ahead of schedule. Glad to hear that. It's good news indeed. Kuthanaga nodded. Let me know once you start to see activity there. I will. Kuthanaga felt the connection with Reshnaga fade, and he focused on Zenari. The connection came easily, and he could almost see her. He realized their connection had grown very strong in a short amount of time, and that startled him somewhat. Kuthanaga, it's been some interesting developments here in Utah. On my end as well. The seed has been planted, and I may need you to relocate and monitor your mirrors from another location. Is there another watcher that can take that assignment? Yes, but few I trust with the task. Why? What has got your attention in Utah? A human with extraordinary gifts. She has the gift of sight, and I observed it. You were there, and a drake was involved. A drake? What did he look like? Do you have a clear image in your mind of him? Yes. Focus on it. Tsunari did as she was instructed, and it was as Kuthanaga feared. Yes, I know this drake. His human name is Richard Byington. His real name is Zygriel. He's a high-born drake. He is descended as Meodius of the Cruel. He and I have a history. The last time I shifted the crust, I encountered him. Kuthanaga paused and regained his composure. Tsunari could feel a wave of emotions pour through their connection. She knew something very bad had happened between Kuthanaga and the drake. Kuthanaga continued, He killed my wife. Wife? Tsunari had never heard of Kuthanaga having paired with another Anukai. Yes, her name was Sani. She traveled with me, even though she knew it was wiser to stay behind. We were here gathering information about the Convergence. When we encountered the drake, I was unaware of him, and when he attacked, she saved me. Her act of heroism came at a great cost. I fought with him, and he mocked me terribly. His strength was more than I could handle, and when I thought for sure I was done, he simply stopped attacking and walked away laughing as his humans surrounded us. I was able to pull us back before any more of us were hurt. Sani, though, never woke again. Tsunari was stunned. Why had she never heard any of this? Anukai were not private about their loss. In fact, they shared, so that the healing could be more beneficial. The only thing she could think of was he did not want to forget. He did not want to forgive. He wanted vengeance. Yes, young one, your thoughts are correct. Tsunari was angry with herself. Try as she might to shield her thoughts from Kuthanaga, it was no use. He was simply too powerful. Do not be angered. I will not jeopardize the mission. We will do what we shifted to do. Tell me more about the dream this human of yours had. The drake seemed very interested in her. He pursued her and you, and another human came to her aid. You threw your sacred gaklukun to a human woman, and you fought the beast. The human man used a gun and wounded him a couple of times. The ground was giving way, and the human started to fall. You jumped to save him, but the beast was faster, and he wounded you badly. The human shot again and hit him in the eye, and he fled. You died in the human's arms. Kuthanaga swallowed. Show me the humans you saw in your dream, the woman and the man. Tsunari focused, and Kuthanaga nodded. It was indeed Joy and Tim. Yes, These two humans are with me now. They are important. Kuthanaga considered the news and came to a decision. Have you been in contact with the human who dreamed this? Yes. And did she recognize you for what you were? Yes. She knew me by name. She had dreamed our meeting before it had happened. So, she is accurate. Yes. But she mentioned that she had dreams of you and the Drake battling many times. Sometimes you win. Sometimes he wins. She is unsure of the final outcome. He smiled weakly. Well then, it is not all bad news. Țânări, I want you to see if the human will go with you to Bimini. I agree with you that she is very important, and if she does not want to go, then you will stay where you are. Please let me know if her decision the minute you know. I would prefer to have you assisting me with the situation I have set in motion, but if I need to grab one of the other watchers, it is fine. You have come across something I was not expecting. Her insight will be very much needed, so please let me know. I will, Kuthanaga. One last thing before I go. Yes? I am very sorry for your loss. If you need me to help with the mourning process when you feel the time is right, I am there. Thank you. I will keep that in mind. Do not be concerned with me. It happened a long time ago. I just did not want to forget anything, so I kept it all alive inside me. Again, do not be concerned. Thank you. You are welcome. Her connection faded slowly, and he took a deep breath. This human Țânări found was very important. She had a role to play, and Kuthanaga wasn't sure what it was, but he knew somehow that she was instrumental. The one thing he suddenly knew was Joy also was to have a larger role in things, more so than he originally thought. She would have to undergo some basic training if he was to trust her with the usage of the ᶠᶸᶜᵏ, and he wondered if she would be able to manipulate her environment before the convergence happened. He silently hoped that Țânări's human's ability wasn't as keen as she suspected, because if the situation she described to him unfolded, he wouldn't have his vengeance, and worse, the human's fate was uncertain. He knew from the beginning that things would be difficult, but he maintained his hope that things would turn out for the best. He would have to wait to hear back from Țânări if she would be able to hold down the Bimini location and report to him what was happening. Kuthanaga considered relocating Tim and Joy to Canada, but wondered if it was better to handle that location on his own. Glancing at the ground and the ghostly image that floated there, Kuthanaga knew there was no going back. He had set things in motion that could not be undone. He sat down and again meditated. Chapter 20. Commitment. December 19, 2011, Las Vegas, 3:30 p.m. Tim was glad to be alone with Joy, and he wondered what he should tell her. His foot still throbbed, and with each step he still didn't know what it did. Kuthanaga said it would allow him to keep in touch. Did that mean he could read Tim's mind and know his every thought? The idea that nothing was private, not even his own thoughts, bothered Tim. Well, at least he was doing something good. The thought came to him like a thunderbolt. He was helping, right? On the other hand, was he? What exactly were they doing with Earth's milk at the bottom of Tower 1? Another thought plagued him. He was taking the word of a complete stranger that he was one of the good guys. Tim thought about his encounters with the Draconian. He obviously was trying to kill Tim, and that was proof enough that what Kuthanaga has said about them was correct. Tim realized he needed to have a very serious discussion with Kuthanaga and see exactly what was going on. He knew that the chances Kuthanaga would tell him everything he wanted to know was small, but he vowed that he would at least try. Joy had been staring at him for a while, and she knew he was somewhere else, and she didn't want to disturb him. He glanced at her and gave a fake smile. He was trying to ease her concern, but it wasn't working. She cleared her throat and took his hands in hers. Tim? He nodded. Yeah. What the fuck? Excuse me? You've been acting funny since you got back. What's wrong, babe? He shrugged. Anyway, some crazy shit went down in New York. Yeah? Like what? He pulled up his shirt, and she could see a pink scar across his ribs. What happened? I ran into one of those fucking dragon things. Draconian. Thing was fucking huge and fast. I got real lucky, babe. He took a deep breath and realized that a single tear had fallen from his eye. It hit the table and he swore he could hear its impact. He wiped his eye. I was fucking dying. All I could think about was you. He was looking her deep in the eyes, and she was speechless. Her heart ached at the thought of losing him. She could not imagine a world without her man. Tim, let's get married. His eyes got big. What? She shoved him and she grinned at him. What, you don't want to have me as a wife? He quickly shook his head. No, I didn't mean that. She enjoyed shocking him. She hoped it would pull him from his darkness to her. It was working. Fuck it, let's do it. I'm kind of bummed you beat me to the punch, though. I wanted to do it all romantically and surprise you. So is that a yes? Yep. When do you want to do it? Right now. Now? Yes, now. Let's get some rings and get hitched. Tim stood up and shrugged. After nearly dying, he liked the idea of taking the relationship to the next level. He always knew he'd be with Joy forever, and he'd take her as his wife as long as he could. Fuck yeah, baby. He took her by the hand and they made a mad dash for Tesserini, which they had noticed when they first arrived and had passed every day since they arrived. They entered the jewelry store and it was brilliant to the eye. A few people were milling around, wide-eyed, examining display cases which glittered with all forms of jewelry from ultra-high-end watches to necklaces and rings. There were two men in the store. One was dealing with a woman, and the other was a tall man in a neatly pressed black suit, greeted them as they entered. Hello there, can I help you? Joy was bubbling. Yes, we need wedding rings. Nothing too fancy, but something nice. The man seemed not at all surprised by the request, and he led them to a specific display and stood behind it. What kind of a budget are you working with? Price is not an issue, a deep voice said from behind them. Joy spun around and saw Kuthanaga, and Tim didn't move. He had almost felt Kuthanaga before he had said anything. Desmond, Joy waved. It is customary to have a witness when one gets married, correct? Joy nodded. I would be honored if I could help. Tim shrugged. It was obvious to him that Kuthanaga was going to keep a very watchful eye on him. As long as Joy was happy, Tim didn't care. They spent 10 minutes looking around various rings until one ring jumped out and caught Joy's eye. She took a deep breath and held it. She looked at Tim, and he smiled. Kuthanaga gently put his hand on Tim's shoulder and smiled. I believe we have found the ring that has taken the voice from her. Tim nodded. How much is it? Joy asked cautiously. The man glanced at something behind the counter and said, 36,000. Joy's jaw started to open, and before she could say anything, Kuthanaga interrupted. That is fine. We need to find a ring for the husband-to-be now. I think I see one, which is suitable for you, Tim. Kutha knocked with a purpose to the heavy, solid white gold ring that had a thick black band around the center. Tim followed. Part of him was irritated, and the other half was flattered. Tim's father had died when he was a young boy, and his mother brought many new dads home. He realized Kuthanaga reminded him of some of his early memories of his father. He looked at the ring and was impressed with its size and design. It wasn't gaudy, it was classy. Tim scanned the other rings and had to admit it would have been the ring he would have picked out. Yeah, that's hot. What you think, babe? Joy smiled as she examined it. How much is that one? Kuthanaga waved it away. It is my gift to you two. Joy smiled and was excited. Kuthanaga leaned over to the merchant and said, May I see the two rings, side by side? Of course. The man already had Joy's ring with him, and he placed him down on the white silk swatch. Kuthanaga slowed time and focused on the rings. They rose and hovered in front of him for a moment. He reached into his inside pocket, took out his nail, and slid it on a small gold slab. A small sliver snaked off, danced around Joy's ring, and melted into the surface. Okay, took his nail and slid. Okay. He slid again, and a thicker piece snaked off and danced around Tim's ring. The ring pulsed for a moment, and the glow faded. The ring settled back into its normal position on the white swatch, and time again flowed normally. Kuthanaga pulled out a wallet and handed the man a credit card. The man regarded the card for a moment and looked Kuthanaga over briefly. I'll need to size the rings. It'll take a little bit. That won't be necessary. I'll take care of them. The merchant shrugged, entered the information into the machine, and the total popped up. Slid the credit card and waited. The machine became alive, kicked out the paper, receipt, and a second slip. Please sign. Kuthanaga signed a slip, and the man boxed up the ring, handed the small bag to Joy and Tim. Good luck, you two. Thanks. Joy was smiling a toothy smile which lit up the room. Kuthanaga was leading them on the way. Let's go to the suite for a few minutes to complete the rest of your wedding preparations. They nodded and followed Kuthanaga back to the suite. When they exited the elevator, in front of their suite, a low hum could be heard emanating from within the room. Tim glanced at Joy, and Joy looked back. They were holding hands, and Tim's grip tightened. A glowing blue light seeped from one of the corners of the door as Kuthanaga opened it. Do not be concerned. I am just working. There's nothing to be afraid of. Tim's grip didn't ease as they entered. They paused through the door after Kuthanaga and both of them... Oh, they passed through the door, and after Kuthanaga and both of them paused. What the hell? Joy said, barely audible. The center of the room was now completely clear of any furniture, and the walls were shimmering, reflecting the contents of the center of the room back and forth infinitely like an ever-shifting hall of mirrors. Directly in the center of the room was a tree stump, and around it were glowing bands of blue symbols in a circle. Around the circumference of the stump, various other symbols drifted in, seemingly random patterns as if caught in a current of energy. Directly above the stump was the appearance of what appeared to be a map of North America. There were glowing lines that formed a complex matrix that reminded Tim of a spider's web. To Joy, it looked like a vascular system. Yes, Joy, it is veins we are looking at. Tim, it may look like a web at first glance, but notice not all of the lines are connected completely together. They may seem to connect, but they actually overlap. Some run deep underground while others are closer to the surface. We are accessing a vein close to the surface in New York. Joy ignored the fact that Kuthanaga was reading her mind, and Tim had just stopped caring and took it for granted that any thought was up for scrutiny by his Anukai taskmaster. What's that? Joy asked, pointing at 3 veins, which were glowing a pale pink. That is what Tim and I accomplished in New York. Joy was about to ask another question when suddenly the room flashed and everything was back to normal. We're getting off track, said Kuthanaga. Where's the map and all the glowing stuff? It's still here, but we have more important things to discuss than the map at this moment. We do? He nodded. Yes, your wedding. Do you have an idea of what you'd like to wear? I'd like to try something. Can I see the rings? Tim and Joy handed the bag to Kuthanaga, who motioned. The rings floated out into his hand. Tim, may I see your hand? Joy, yours as well. They extended their hands, and Kuthanaga placed the rings on both of their fingers. Joy was about to make a joke about how large hers was when suddenly it moved, and she watched as the ring sized itself to the perfect fit. Tim's also changed. He thought he saw a faint glow along the ring's surface, but he said nothing of it. Kuthanaga placed his hand over the rings and closed his eyes. I want you to close your eyes and picture the clothing you want to wear. Do not just see how it looks, but picture the fabric, the weight. Try to be as specific as possible. Tim and Joy closed their eyes, and Kuthanaga noted Joy was able to easily picture the dress within her mind. Where Tim kept getting distracted, he was all over the place. He pictured the shoes and the pants, and then he would shift to the jacket instead of all the details at once. Joy's outfit shifted, and slowly it took form, and there was a piece on it that Kuthanaga realized that there was no tail on earth who could make it. He nodded to himself as he saw how easily she was manipulating her environment. Tim's clothing shifted back and forth, and Kuthanaga smiled. He caught the individual pieces that Tim was envisioning, and he helped. Well done. Open your eyes and see your outfit. I have masked them from each of you. When the wedding is about to begin, I will reveal them, but you can see your own outfit and make whatever adjustments you wish. Tim looked down and he grinned. He was wearing his tuxedo, but it was cut comfortable and stylish. It was perfectly pressed and had a slight gray tint to the black that shifted in the light. The shirt was a soft blue, and his shoes were black with blue flames. Joy also examined herself, and her dress was white, but it had a silky strip of baby blue that almost seemed to flow like water. Asterisk. I got the idea of moving water from your eyes, she thought to herself, knowing Kuthanaga would hear her. He nodded and smiled. The dress was mid-cut, just above her knees, and the tail was long and almost floated behind her. Her heels were stiletto with ankle straps, and her legs were covered with an airy, almost translucent sheen that had a slight hint of blue. Her veil was similar material, and she had even gone as far as manipulating her hair and makeup without even fully consciously thinking about it. She had thought about some jewelry, but decided to go with something simple. I believe it is a good thing we masked you two until just before the wedding, as it would be impossible to not get noticed. Tim tried to imagine what Joy looked like and was getting very excited. Please hand me back the rings. I shall give them to you shortly. Tim and Joy removed their rings, and Kuthanaga placed them in his inside pocket. Where are we going to do this? Tim asked. Joy shrugged. It was at that moment a knock from the front door startled them. Kuthanaga walked over and opened it. Monica Crawford stood there with her eyes bright and a grin from ear to ear. Someone told me you were planning a wedding for today. Joy nodded. We just need something nice and pretty and someone to marry us. Nothing too formal or extravagant. Monica smiled. Well, we are the Bellagio and we have a couple of locations. Would you like to do this inside or outside? The weather had remained cold, and to make matters worse, the wind was blowing fiercely. Joy shook her head, and she recalled the bitter chill. Inside, please. Monica nodded. I agree. How many people are going to attend? Just us and Desmond, and a priest, I guess. She nodded. Okay, well, we have a brilliant location, which I think will be perfect for you. We call it the East Chapel. I'll make sure it's ready for you right now. Joy was smiling. Well, Mr. Christensen, said Joy, smiling. Last chance to back out. Fuck that. Let's do this. Monica used a headset, and after about 3 minutes, she turned to face them. Okay, everything is ready. Is there any special religious ceremony you'll need? Do you want to do your own vows, follow what the priest says, etc.? Joy looked at Tim and smiled. I know what I'd like to say. Do you have anything? Tim shrugged. I got skills, you know. I can do freestyle, baby. Joy turned to Monica and said, I think we'll do some kind of a hybrid if it's okay. Monica nodded and relayed the information into her headset. Religious affiliation? Catholic, answered Tim. Spiritual, answered Joy. I believe in God, I just don't have any formal religious leanings, she added. Monica nodded and started to walk to the elevator. What about your clothing? Kuthanaga smiled. They are on the way, as are the flowers. They walked for a while and eventually made their way to the East Chapel. There was a waiting room for the bride. Kuthanaga instructed Joy to stay put until he sent for her. After Joy had been tucked away, he told Tim to go change. Tim grinned and nodded. He knew that once Kuthanaga was ready for him, he'd let him know to come back to the small chapel. Kuthanaga bent time, created 3 mirrors, and quickly morphed them into various human approximations to make everything seem normal. He waited until they were outside the rear of the building, 3 blocks away. He had them gather flowers from some nearby bushes, and they modified them until they were hybrids of roses and lilies that were brilliant white with a tint of blue. They started walking to the chapel, and he allowed time to flow. He removed the disguises on Tim and Joy's clothing, and once the mirrors showed up with the flowers, they quickly decorated the chapel, which took 15 minutes. The priest showed up and smiled at Kuthanaga. Who are you? Kuthanaga smiled. I am the witness. Monica poked her head in and caught her breath. The chapel looked beautiful, and the flowers were unlike anything she had ever seen. The smell of the small flowers tickled her nose, and she waited until Kuthanaga nodded to head over and inform Joy the room was ready. Asterisk. Tim, you can come now. Tim nodded. He headed back towards the chapel. Monica saw Tim, and she was going to get Joy, and she nodded at him. It's almost time. The room is ready. I'm on my way to get Joy. You know where it is, right? Tim nodded. Yep, I'm on my way. She examined Tim as he walked past her and noticed his outfit was a little too edgy for her taste, but seemed to suit him. She walked a little more and knocked on Joy's door. When Joy opened the door, Monica's eyes widened, and she was shocked. The dress was one of the most beautiful she had ever seen. Oh, my. Wow, you look beautiful. You have to give me the name of your tailor. That dress is amazing. The chapel is ready if you'd like to follow me. Monica put the stopper on the door to keep it open, and Joy followed her. When Joy saw the chapel, she almost cried. It was small, but perfect. There was a pair of double doors, which was open to reveal the chapel, and the floor was covered with floral designs of blue and pink. At the far end of the room, the priest was standing there waiting with a warm disposition. Kuthanaga was there standing behind Tim, who was wearing an outfit that was all him. She laughed when she saw the flames on his shoes. The chapel had 3 rows of seating on both sides of the aisles. Situated on the sides of each row were beautiful flowers that made the air smell sweet and floral. Behind Tim and the priest were 2 large mosaic glass windows shaded in blue. It was amazing when she noticed that all the blues matched up perfectly. When Tim saw Joy, he was speechless. The dress was amazing and fit her like a glove. He was overwhelmed with emotions. He felt butterflies in his stomach, and his pulse quickened. He realized next to her the dress was nothing. It was her radiant glow that made the dress. She walked up to him, and it looked surreal to Tim. Something about the way the dress moved seemed unnatural, almost as if he was watching a film that was rewound. A few moments later, she was standing next to him. "Hi," she said. "Hi," he replied. The priest was a short man, a little on the heavy side, dressed in black, except for a small white square on his throat. The lines on his face were long and deep. His eyes, though, looked alive and alert. He had a warm, fatherly smile, and he waited until Joy was in position. "Okay, so which of you wishes to go first?" Tim grinned, and had been thinking of what was going to say, and he had even tried to put some of his thoughts down on a napkin to practice. Thoughts were jumbling through his head, and he tried to rein them in to create the words that came from his heart. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ could sense the rising elevation of fear in Tim and closed his eyes, while still creating the illusion that they were open. Focusing on Tim, he helped him calm down and forced his mind to focus clearly. "I'm ready," Tim said, and he knew he was. He took Joy's hand in his and stared deeply into her eyes. "Joy, we've been through a lot together, and you are my everything. I can't imagine a world without you, 'cause if you weren't here, I'd be empty, sad, and without the one person who really and truly understands and loves me. I love you more than anything. There are no words that can truly express to you what you mean to me. I stand before you ready to love you for the rest of my life. I would gladly die for you if I needed to, and just want you to know how deep my love for you is. I will be the husband you always have hoped for." A pause, and Joy responded, "Tim, there are many things I love about you, and even when you are at your craziest, you are still the man I can't stand to be without. I never get bored hanging out with you, can honestly say I've never loved anyone as much as I love you. You are my everything, and I am yours forever. I want you to know that I know you love me, and I feel it. We are already experienced bad times, and I can't wait to make a lot more of the good times. I love you so much and can't wait to be your wife." The priest nodded and realized these were words that were unrehearsed and from the heart. It made him smile and filled him with happiness. "Now that you two have exchanged your dedications to each other, may we have the rings?" ᶠᶸᶜᵏ handed the ring to the priest. "Tim, do you take Joy to be your wedded wife, to live together in marriage? Do you promise to love, comfort, honor, and keep her for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, and forsaking all others, be faithful only to her, so long as you both shall live?" Tim nodded. "I do." "Joy, do you take Tim to be your wedded husband, to live together in marriage? Do you promise to love, comfort, honor, keep him for better or for worse, richer or poor, sickness and health, and forsaking all others, be faithful only to him, as long as you both shall live?" Joy nodded. "I do." The priest looked at ᶠᶸᶜᵏ. "As witness to these promises, will you do everything in your power to uphold these two in their marriage?" ᶠᶸᶜᵏ nodded. "I will." "Excellent. Tim, please repeat after me. I, Tim, take you, Joy, to be my wife, to have and hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, sickness and health, to love and to cherish till death do us part." Tim paused for a second and cleared his throat. "I, Tim, take you, Joy, to be my wife, to have and to hold from this day forever, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and health, to love and to hold." "Cherish," corrected the priest. He ignored the error on the forward and liked the forever replacement. Oh yeah, "cherish, till death do us part." "Joy, please repeat after me. I, Joy, take you, Tim, to be my husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and health, to love and cherish, till death do us part." Joy smiled. She squeezed Tim's hand. "I, Joy, take you, Tim, to be my husband, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and health, to love and cherish, till death do us part." The priest did not know why, but the room felt as if many eyes were on him, and a couple. He glanced up, and all the chairs were empty, but he couldn't shake that something else was in the room. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ sensed a strange sensation in the room. Some force was among them, and he glanced around. The room was empty except for the four of them. He saw the priest had noticed something as well. The priest focused again and continued. He held up the ring so Tim and Joy could see them. "From the earliest times, the circle has been a symbol of completeness, a symbol of committed love, an unbroken and never-ending circle symbolizing a commitment of love that is also never-ending. As often as either of you looks at this symbol, I hope you will be reminded of the commitment to love each other while you have, which you have made today. He handed each of them the rings, and they were given, and he handed each of them the rings they were given each other, and he continued, "Will each of you repeat after me? I, Tim, give you Joy this ring as a symbol of my commitment to love, honor, and respect you. With this ring, I thee wed." Tim nodded and repeated the sentence perfectly. He slid the ring on Joy's finger, and she noticed the ring was warm. The priest looked at Joy. "I, Joy, give you, Tim, this ring as a symbol of my commitment to love, honor, respect you. With this ring, I thee wed." Joy repeated and placed the ring on Tim's finger. "Before God and the honored witness, Tim and Joy have promised each other their love and have given each other rings to wear as a sign of their deep commitment. Therefore, I declare that they are husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Tim pulled Joy to him, and he kissed her with such passion that Joy felt as if it was the first kiss they had ever shared. A shock of energy filled them both as they kissed. She could feel his love so profoundly she felt tears roll down her cheek. Tim wiped the tears away and gently caressed her face. "I love you so much, Miss Christensen," he said. She smiled. "I love you too, Mr. Christensen." The priest smiled and put his hand on Tim's shoulder. "There's some paperwork on the table there I need you to fill out." Tim and Joy worked on the paperwork as ᶠᶸᶜᵏ walked the room, straining to see what else was among them. The priest watched him and walked over to join him. "You feel it too?" ᶠᶸᶜᵏ nodded. "Yes, I do." "What do you think it is?" The priest shrugged. "Some would say angels, maybe the Holy Spirit. I couldn't say, but something is here." ᶠᶸᶜᵏ nodded. He didn't know what it was, and he couldn't pinpoint it. Whatever it was didn't want to reveal itself. Once the paperwork was done, the priest congratulated the couple again, and he left. As ᶠᶸᶜᵏ and the couple exited the chapel, Monica was waiting for them. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Christensen." "Thank you," Joy said with a smile. She liked being called Mrs. Christensen. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ handed Monica a small envelope, and she quickly tucked it away. She radioed a few instructions and headed up into the chapel. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ started walking, and Joy and Tim looked at each other. "I am heading back to the suite, and then we'll be gone for a few days. Please enjoy yourself, and when I return, we will discuss what needs to happen. We will talk more then. Yes, one more thing before I leave you." He motioned, and they were in their original clothing. Monica turned and saw them barely turn the corner out of her sight. She had caught a momentary glimpse of the clothes shift, waved it away, and explained in her own mind that it was just another couple that she saw. "You two have fun. I will be back." Tim reached out and gently grabbed ᶠᶸᶜᵏ's arm. "Thank you for this. You deserve it, Tim Christensen. Please enjoy." Tim nodded and watched as Joy hugged ᶠᶸᶜᵏ. "Yeah, thank you so much." He embraced her back, and he walked away. After a few moments, he was lost from their sight in the sea of people. "So, Mr. Christensen, what would you like to do now?" He grinned at her. "Well, we are married now." "So we shop for toys?" She made a face and punched him in the arm. "Wow, freakazoid! Didn't take you long to go there." He shrugged. "Come on, don't be that way. It was only an idea." "Well, we could always go look. I don't see any harm there." She smiled at her new husband and hugged her. They walked away. They walked off arm in arm with an almost visible glow. All right, last chapter. Chapter 21, Travel. December 19, 2011, Salt Lake, 2:10 p.m. Sonari was anxious to speak with Rachel. She shifted to the mayor's location and walked up to the door. She knocked, and there was no reply. She waited for a few more moments and knocked again. A few more anxious moments passed, and she walked through the door into the house. The couch was there, and the house was silent. She walked the halls, and after a few minutes, she was sure no one was home. She took a seat on the couch and waited. She meditated and continued to monitor the mirrors, and finally, a few hours later, she was stirred by the sound of the front door opening. Rachel had her arms full of groceries and fumbling with the door. Even though Sonari was obscured from sight, Rachel addressed her. "Can you help me, please, Sonari?" Sonari stood and grabbed a few of the bags and shifted into focus. Rachel smiled at Sonari. "Let's put the groceries on the kitchen table." Sonari followed her into the kitchen and noticed the front door was still open. She focused on it, and it silently slid closed. "So Bimini, huh? Never been near Florida before." Sonari was amazed. "How did you... dream?" Rachel smiled. "Yep. That's why I went and grabbed some supplies for the trip. Also, you'd better let ᶠᶸᶜᵏ know soon your answer. If you wait too long, you won't get him for a few days. He's traveling somewhere north. A couple of dreams he was unavailable, and others he was available." Sonari nodded and set the bags on the kitchen table. She closed her eyes, massaged the sixth slab on the necklace, and pictured Kuthanaga. After a few moments, she could feel his presence, not mentally, but physically. She opened her eyes, and he was standing in front of her. Rachel dropped the glass she had been filling with when he materialized. "I wasn't expecting a visit," Zenari said. Kuthanaga looked stern and examined Rachel, who looked surprised to see him. "Has she accepted the offer?" Zenari nodded. "Good. I wanted to meet her myself, and I can see you are not exaggerating. Her aura is very interesting." "As is ours, Kuthanaga." He looked at Zenari and noticed her aura was also shifting. "Hello there, Kuthanaga. It's nice to finally meet you." He nodded, took her hand in his, and shook it gently. "You as well. I'm glad you have agreed to go with Zenari." She grinned. "I didn't dream any of this." "How interesting." He looked at her closely. "What do you mean?" "I've dreamed of talking with you, but not now, not here. Not a single dream. There is something different about you. Something I can't quite put my finger on." He smiled. "So maybe there is hope for me after all. Maybe I'll survive all of this." She nodded. "Maybe. Well, I'm sure it'll all work itself out somehow. Things always seem to anyways. Somehow. Some way." "So you have all of your affairs in order for your travel?" "The only bill I have is this house here and the utilities. Those will be taken care of." Kuthanaga closed his eyes, read Rachel, found all the information he needed. It took him some effort, but everything he needed was there. It was obvious to him she could have put up a fight and resisted him, but she had sensed him and allowed it. "I'm sure it will be." "I'm sure it will be, but you and I both know in a year it won't matter anyway." He nodded. "True, but I still want to make sure you are compensated in all ways for your agreeing to travel with Zenari." She studied Kuthanaga and noticed something was troubling him. "What's going on, big guy? You seem troubled. What brought you here? You normally wouldn't be here, so what's on your mind?" She was observant, if nothing else. He was troubled. The presence at the wedding was something he couldn't explain, and it was an experience he was unfamiliar with. Anakai believed in a celestial deity who created all from nothing, but he was hands-off. He simply set the stage and allowed life to run its course. The notion of angels or a Holy Spirit that could visit and watch after humanity seemed alien to him. "What is your understanding of angels?" "Depends. I've never dreamed of angels. At least I've never seen them. I have witnessed miracles, but have always felt those things were supposed to happen. I always kind of thought angels and demons were you guys, to be honest." Kuthanaga nodded. Many of the exploits of the Draconians and a few rogue Anukai had created various legends. Some of the well-known demons and angels were named directly from Drakes and Anukai. "Yes, I thought that as well. Something happened to me today. I could sense something I couldn't see, and yet I knew it was there. Well, I know when you are around, even though I can't always see you. Maybe it's something else? Maybe another alien?" Kuthanaga doubted another species of aliens would be foolish enough to make the same error they had made so many years before. "I suppose it matters not. Whatever it was content on simply watching us." Rachel was interested. "What was it?" "What? You said it was content to watch." "Watch what?" "A wedding." "A wedding, huh? Was there family there?" Kuthanaga shook his head. "No, just the priest and me, in addition to the bride and groom." "Where were their families?" "The mother and father died long ago, for both bride and groom. The brother of the bride also died. Sister of the groom has not spoken to him in a long while." "I wonder." "What?" "Maybe the family showed up after all to watch and pay their respect." "Ghosts?" There was much speculation about the humans and ghosts among the elder Anukai. What happened when the humans died? Did they pass on to the next phase? Rachel had pointed out an option he had not considered, and it helped him. He sighed and felt relaxed. "I am grateful for your wisdom." "Thank you." She shrugged. "No biggie. Glad to help where I can." Kuthanaga looked at Zenari. "Make sure you protect this human." Zenari nodded. "I will leave you with Zenari. There are things I must attend to. I will see you both soon. Zenari, here is the location I need you to go. The resources you need to get there are here." Kuthanaga dropped an envelope on the kitchen table and placed his hands near her, and she could sense the location. She nodded, and he closed his eyes and faded. Zenari was alone again with Rachel. There was much more she wanted to say to Kuthanaga, but she knew there was a time and place for everything. Tsunari opened the envelope. Inside was cash and IDs. Tsunari knew she would have to mask Rachel as they traveled to match the credentials, and that would mean potentially losing contact with Mares and losing a few. Nevertheless, Kuthanaga deemed it necessary, and he knew better than anyone else what was at stake. I guess I'll finish packing for our trip. Tsunari waited, and 30 minutes later, they were on their way to the airport. All right, so that gets us to chapter 22. And yeah, gets us to chapter 22, and that we're about a third of the way through. So we're going to keep this going, and I hope you guys are enjoying this so far. I enjoy reading it. It's kind of weird for me because as I read this, there's parts that I remember, and there's parts that are fresh and new for me still. So that's kind of cool. So anyway, that's it for now. I hope you guys are enjoying this. If you like it, please subscribe. Tell all your friends. Share this shit far and wide. Until next time, please be good to each other.